So we're live.
We're live. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Nerdy Up North podcast. It's a nerdy podcast that is hosted by Northern Nerds. I am one of your hosts, Sam.
And I'm the other host, Paul. And tonight, on a very scary and terrifying night, we are joined by the lovely Kay. And I'll try and get all the puns out the way. Now, Kay has been a long-time supporter and friend of the Nerdy Up North team and the podcast. But this is the first time Kay has come on as Kay. So, Kay, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Just Kay.
Hello. Yes, thank you very much for having me. So my main thing is I am an academic researcher and I specialize in horror studies and game studies, and I am a horrible little gremlin who enjoys sadistic, scary clowns.
Yes.
As you will find out tonight.
So we have an intellectual on the podcast tonight. So yes. So we might be asking her to explain some of the words she uses or how like pronunciations. But yes, it is going to be interesting.
We did actually text each other saying, Kay is going to bring so much intellect to this. We're going to have to up our game a bit.
Don't say this. No, you're setting the standard now.
No
People
pressure.
expect more of me.
Yes.
So...
Oh no, it's fine. It's just shit. She knows nothing. It's okay.
Absolutely nothing. It's all a lie.
Oh bless. The chat's saying hello, Kay. So they're making friends already.
Oh, it's Chris. Shout out to Chris.
Hi, Chris. Hi, Dave. Christopher Reed's here. Wish he would fuck off.
Leave him be. Hi, Beth.
Hi, Beth. Everyone seemed to... Oh, Lee's there as well. So, yes, this is going to be probably what I would... I know it's going to sound weird me saying this, the most controversial episode that the Nerdy Up North team will talk about. We'll let Sammy do a little things first. So, because as we had a BBC interview on Friday, and Sammy said I have to remind her to do a little bits, which I'll do right now.
Are we doing? I'm not doing the disclaimer though. Not yet.
I can do the disclaimer. We'll get the disclaimer out early, I think.
I'll do the disclaimer first. So everything discussed in today's episode is our opinions and our opinions alone. If you'd like to discuss anything from today's episode, please come and join us in the Facebook group, the Discord, or the comment section where we can have an open discussion. Mm-hmm. What we won't have is anyone coming for us and telling us our opinions are wrong. We can all agree to disagree in fandom. So let's keep it fun, keep it kind, and keep the toxic behaviour out of nerdism.
Yes. So...
Amen.
Amen. So, when me and Sammy started the podcast, we always said, doesn't matter what we do, doesn't matter how we do it, we will always be positive. And we will never slag anything off, okay? So anyone who's tuning in tonight to expect us to start slating this movie, it's not going to happen. No. So, but, and I do mean this as a nice but, I did struggle with the movie as a whole because it's. I think I described it in the promo. This is probably one of the biggest Marmite movies out there at this moment in time when it comes to a franchise or the franchise as a whole. You either love this shit or you fucking hate this shit. There's no middle of the road with this. You either get on board or you get the fuck out the door. And I think that's probably the best way to describe this movie or the movies as a whole. And if you've noticed as well, there's a little poster in the corner of the Terrifier 3. There has been a big announcement this week that the third one has been announced. And it looks like it's going to be a Christmas special. Yay, family.
Yay!
So
what a wholesome family film to get into.
So, okay.
Hello.
The big question we're going to ask is why do you love this movie so much? Why is this the one that you came to us and said, I want to do an episode of the Nerdy Up podcast talking about these movies? Because you've been asking for it for a while now, bless you.
So, twofold. One is my own personal bias because with my research interests lie in the excessive, in the aggressive, the violent, the taboo, or the word that we use is transgressive. Transgressive meaning anything that goes against societal norms. So typically the stuff that is very brutal, very gory. I'm very interested in that because I'm interested in why our silly little brains enjoy these horrible things.
Right.
Also, the other side of things is I think we are witnessing the dawn of a new age slasher icon. And I think that that's something really exciting to be a part of when the majority of our slasher icons have been established since the 80s.
I 100% agree with you on the second one. On the second point, we brought this up on Monsters a fair few times. Art gets brought up when we talk about iconic characters. And I've always said, for all I am not ever so keen on these movies, I feel he is the new age era of horror icon.
Yes.
And he's kind of fitting into the plethora of other horror icons. He has the look for it. So yes, I agree with you on that one.
So yeah, that's one thing I did want to like. I think that'll be a perfect jumping off point for like getting into these movies as well. Art the clown is the scariest clown in horror. Like, I'm sorry, Tim Curry. I'm sorry, Pennywise. I'm sorry, one of the new ones. I can't remember his name because I'll probably say it wrong. Art is literally nightmare fuel.
You mean
in
this silly guy here?
Yes.
The guy right there.
And when you watch the movies, like say, and I say watch them because it's you normally like hiding your face behind anything that can get in front of it. Art is captivating. Like
Yeah.
the performance of art itself is brilliant, and in horror is absolutely perfect. The way he unflinches, and he doesn't have to say a word. Like we've had 2 movies now, and art hasn't even said a word in these movies, and he still conveys quite a lot of emotion, quite a lot of intensity, and you know through his eyes what's going on. And to me, I think that is the rubber stamp of approval for any type of movie. If you've got the main villain that does captivate and bring you in, and then you just want to spend the full movie trying to get the fuck away from him as quickly and as fast as possible. I know he does the conventions dressed as art as well, and he's actually one of these people that I'm not scared of clowns. I would not go the fuck near him though. Not a chance. Like
you best watch yourself on Sunday.
I know.
Sunday.
I am. You like Sammy's been to this pictures with me, and it's hilarious. I'm gonna be like that. I'm gonna just be smiling, but I'm gonna be thinking, "Fuck, get away from his fuck, get away from his fuck." If he gets that little horn out, I'm gonna punch him in the face. But yeah,
he will. He will.
So talking about the first movie, like say with art coming in, it's kind of like a bit of a different approach to it. Like there's a lot of things that I would say when it comes to horror movies is very like it kind of takes the piss out of the like horror movies as a way, almost similar to how Scream did it in a way, where you're watching it, you think this is going to be predictable, this is going to be the final girl, this is how it's going to go, this is how it's going to end. When you get to the middle part of the film and certain things happen, there is going to be spoilers in this as well. It takes you on a completely different ride than you're expecting. Like if you take away all the gore, all the nastiness, I know, okay, you're loving the nastiness and the gore, but if you take that out, the actual movie itself, as a whole, I'll give it the first one. The second one we'll have a different conversation. I think the first one is quite a clever storytelling the way it does it, and I do like that about it. Like it doesn't just go with the norm, like the Halloweens and stuff like that. But that's where, like, say, my issue lies as well. Because I know when we've done episodes where we've talked about like our favorite horror films or favorite scares and stuff, like Michael Myers is always a big one for me. And I love the stuff that you don't see with Michael Myers or you don't know. Now with Art and the Terrifier, it doesn't really leave too much to the imagination. Anything that he does, you see in abundance, and I can understand why that would be quite off-putting for a lot of people. Like, but as a whole, there's certain things. It is probably the scariest, and I don't mean this is disrespectfully, B movie that I have ever seen. If that makes sense.
Oh yeah,
makes complete sense. I mean, to be honest, you've touched on 2 of the things that are the reasons why I love the Terrifier films. So on the topic of storytelling and narrative, Terrifier wasn't our first introduction to Art the Clown.
No.
We'd actually seen Art the Clown before in Damien Leone's 2013 anthology series, All Hallows Eve, which was a collection of 3 short films that he'd put together into this anthology series. And Art the Clown, yet again, did his heinous, horrible acts. And it was from that series that people were interested by this character. And obviously Damien then, I believe, crowdfunded the first film. And obviously it was like he always gives kudos to the crowd and the audience for that, in the sense that they funded that film, they made it happen. It was all because of their love for this character that had come onto their screens and terrorized everybody, and they just wanted more. that being said, I feel like when you're creating these short films, it's difficult to capture a narrative without just throwing all straight at you in your face. Now, obviously, the Terrifier films are very in your face. There's no questions about that. They are very upfront with what they're doing. They are very gory, very brutal, and very graphic. But I think the perk with Terrifier and Terrifier 2 is that because we're now getting this long form content, especially in Terrifier 2 because of the length of it,
It's a long film.
he's taking his time now to go a bit more into that narrative and to draw it out rather than just trying to mash everything into these 3 short films and get the point across really quickly because you're trying to grab people's attention.
Yeah.
But with that as well, because I found, again, this is just personal preference, please don't come for us. I found the Terrifier 1, like lengthwise and flow-wise, flow better. The Terrifier 2, which is 2 hours, 32 hours, 40, it did feel harder to watch, like a slog. It almost felt like, being honest, 2 separate movies in one. Like you get the first half and then the second half where it goes absolute batshit crazy, like trying to keep up and trying to work out what's going on. But like the whole narrative of the first one, and I think I said it to my wife last night as well. Like that was the second time we sat down and watched it together. If you can remember movies that came out in the 90s, early 2000s from Australia, like the Australian horrors, like the Loved Ones and stuff like that. There was very much that type of feel, almost like Wolf Creek feel to it as well, where you're not quite sure what's going on. There's bad acting, like let's be honest, some of the acting, like that poor guy, the janitor guy, walking around, is some of the worst like horror movie acting you'll ever see. But
he is somebody. He is somebody. He's not an actor.
Right.
He is something to do with All Hallows Eve, I believe.
Right.
I believe. I did try and do some reading on this because I was like, I'm not going to bring much to a conversation about this movie because I'm going to be honest, disclaimer, I didn't watch the second one. Couldn't watch it all the way through. I'm sorry, Kay. Couldn't do it. I nearly came, but it's very rare that I'll turn something off. If I'm in it, I'm in it. The only time I've ever done it before was with Robert Downey Jr.'s Dr. Dolittle. 10 minutes in, and I was like, "Fuck this." But there's a scene in the first one that, I'm not joking, made us not just go cold, but made me physically shrivel up inside, like legs crossed, the works. Like I have never felt that uncomfortable, and I was like, I don't really want to feel that uncomfortable again. Like my horror for me is subtle. My kills are predictable and can be foreseen. But even for me, it's too much. It's just too much. But yeah, that scene with her dangling upside down and oh no.
It's understandable. It is completely a fair criticism of the Terrifier films, and this is what I always say to people, is that as much as I love Terrifier, and Terrifier 2 is my favorite film still. I'm very sorry, Paul.
That's fine. It's down to personal taste at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
But if you can explain to me what Terrifier 2 is about, I might enjoy it. But to this day, I've watched it twice, and I still like scratching my head when it starts going into the supernatural weird stuff. But yeah, talking about the deaths, let's get this bad boy rolling as well, because the brutal, like, you think you've seen one thing, but then they take it to the next level. Like I know, like the Terrifier 1, like the big, like there's 2 big scenes that always stands out to me, and it like will never leave us for the rest of my life. That when she's upside down and he's literally hacking her in half, and you're seeing things pour out of her, and you're hearing the screams. It's well done, like practical effects, like amazing. Like well done for doing it. I'd like say I hope someone paid the 30 bills for the people who were involved. And then later on, when the homeless woman, and you see Art lying on the floor, and he's scalped her, and he's cut off a chest, and he's wearing them and just walking around.
I burst out laughing at that. I'm sorry. It's not meant to be funny. That's real, but I could not stop laughing. I literally just put a log on the burner and turned round, and then that was there.
Yeah, it's one of the most experiences I've had. So that was like the 2 standouts in the first one. Then when we go into the Terrifier 2, they have to ramp it up. So everything is an explosion in this one. I that's what I noticed. Like anything that happens is explosions. Like the poor mum when he's in the car and he gets the shotgun out and takes the shotgun to her face, and her head doesn't just like get shot; it like blows up like Scanner style. That was amazing to see. Like going back to that like the 80s for the effects there. But to me, when he's in that girl's bedroom and he's like tortured her, and then you think, oh, it's over, and he comes in with a bottle of bleach and a basically a can of salt, and he's pouring it over and rubbing the salt in. I've never felt my skin wanting to leave my own body at all. And it's even as I'm describing it, Kay's got the biggest smile as well.
I just love
it.
So
it's an interesting thing though, because with the theory of transgression, and I'm probably going to bang on about this a lot because, like I say, it's something that I'm very passionate about with my work. But with the theory of transgression, there's this idea that once you do something that's so heinous and transgressive, you then are creating a limit that must then be breached in order for something else to be considered transgressive. So this is something that Leone has even admitted to with the films, is that, you know, when he writes and when he directs these films, he comes up with these horrific kills, and then that to him is setting the bar, and he wants to create something that's even worse, even more shocking in the next one. So the hacksaw scene was kind of what put Terrifier on the map, because it was so horrific and everyone was just so outraged and shocked by it, which fair enough, understandably so. I do not condone the actions.
In the 80s, that would not have been banned.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Mary Whitehouse would have been, no, I'm picking it for this one. But yes.
Mary Whitehouse.
I'm sure me age now, sorry.
Scene.
Kia's like, who the fuck's he talking about?
Well, I didn't want to say it, Paul, but
yeah, that's fine.
You stopped us from watching a lot of shit, kid.
Yes.
Put it that
way. You've got this horrible scene, and then that is directly challenged in Terrifier 2 by the bedroom scene with Ali, like you say, where you think it's over, you think you've suffered the worst, you've seen her elbow get snapped backwards, you've seen her skin be ripped off, it's horrible, and then just when you think he's done, he comes running back in full of joy with his bottle of bleach and all this salt, and then he's actively rubbing the salt into her wounds, and he is taking the greatest pleasure while he's doing all of this horrible stuff. But there's this idea of the spectacle, and I think there's something to be said about the fact that he is called art. And there's a lot of fan theories going around as to why is he called art. And I think it's something to look at in the sense of he takes his kills to be art.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we look at the hacksaw scene, the way he reveals Dawn to Tara is he has her covered in a white sheet, and then he takes the white sheet off and reveals her. Yeah, and it's very much art exhibition, very much like, look at this, I want your reaction, what do you think of it? And he's very much like a proud child, almost showing off his work. Oh, look at what I did. Tell me how fantastic it is. And then with the bedroom scene, we can say that in a way, obviously the viewer, the spectator to the film is perhaps the viewer to the art exhibition. But I think there's also something to be said about the fact that once he's done brutalizing poor Ali, it cuts away and we get some other content, and then eventually it swaps back to that scene, and we see Ali's mother entering the house, and she realizes that the house has been broken into. And she goes upstairs to the bedroom, obviously worried about what's happened to her daughter, and yet again art has taken the time to arrange her body on the bed to look as though she's sitting. And it's again this idea of creating this almost exhibition, this spectacle out of the kill. And showing the mother, like, look at what I've done, because I find it very hard to believe that Ali, who was on the floor and having a hard time, got herself up onto the bed and arranged herself like that.
No, I think she was out at that point.
There was one death, at the one kill in the first one I was pretty disappointed at, was the not the girl he hacksaw, the other one where he just shot her
Tara,
repeatedly in the face, and I was like, oh, that just seems a bit half-assed. Like, you've just gone to all this effort to do what you've just done, to then just shoot her in the face. Like, it disheartened us a bit. But there was one scene with Tara that actually creased me, was when he injects her and she collapses and he just goes
But
I was like, oh, okay,
Mhm.
okay. He's got a bit of a sense of humor.
yeah. The thing with the Tara death, it's like she was the one that was meant to be like for me what I thought was going to be the final girl. That's where
Yeah, that's where I thought it was
this is where
going.
the movie it became a lot cleverer
Mm.
than I think a lot of people give it credit for because it switched the narrative. It went like it made you focus, made you care. That's the thing. It made you care about, it and you were like, oh, she's
Yeah.
going to get through. What she's going to get through, and like say she got shot in the leg, shot in the side, and you saw him standing over there, and you expect him to click the gun and hear it like an empty chamber. That's what you're expected because horror movies tropes. No,
Mm-hmm.
all you hear is bang, and you go, oh fuck, and but that again's not the end. She's got a hole in her face, and she's still breathing. She's probably choking on blood, and she's lying there, slowly dying. But it's kind of like, oh, a sister's, because that's when the sister's then introduced. It brings in like what we think is going to be the hero. Think, oh, she's going to get her. She's going to like miraculously save her because she's been shot in the face. But no, that was the clever thing. I thought like for the simplicity and the brutal of it, he just shoots her over and over again in the face. Like not just once.
The
He
face.
he empties the round to her face is no more like almost gone because as Keir said, the artwork that he kind of do, he always kind of focused on the face is like non-viewable because even when he's in the morgue, like the start of the Terrifier 2, he takes the guy's eye out, but then it's like bludgeoned the face
Think
until
about
it's
eyes.
yeah.
Well, think about eyes. I generally thought Tara was the girl at the beginning.
Right, yes.
The interviewee. I thought that was her.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, that's fucking predictable. And then when she died, I was like, oh, you were wrong. You were very wrong. That did not give me. I had to pause it just to have a look at her face.
Yeah.
Because I did not understand what was going on with the makeup. I am really fascinated about horror makeup and makeup in general. And even though I look like an absolute tramp today, but I'm very interested in it. And I had to pause it to have a look at it because I couldn't quite understand what was going on with her eye.
Yeah.
And I couldn't quite figure out if she got something over to make it look like, or has her eye have they just flattened it? I could not quite tell
It's probably
what
like
was going on with that makeup.
because at the end of the movie he was eating her face, so she's probably got no
Yeah,
skin left. So it's just basically putting a layer of
it's
skin over her face to try and
but
cover it.
it's the eye.
Yeah, but
So
rather
the
than having a
sockets won't
socket or a hole,
change.
it was just like a layer of skin that was put over her face. But
It
yeah,
looked so bizarre. But it wasn't until the very end where it kind of like goes a sepia tone over the top of her face, and you can kind of see like the outline, so I can see where our sockets are and see. It just looks bizarre to us, but it was really interesting makeup. Really interesting makeup choice.
yeah. I'm just laughing at the chat. Lee's just said someone's getting eaten. Bet Sam loved that.
I'm not gonna lie, Sam did turn away and couldn't actually watch that scene. So yeah,
So
I don't do cannibals.
With the
no,
with
no,
the
go.
whole gun thing though as well, this was a point that Leone actually made. Because a lot of people do find the gun quite jarring in the sense that Art's committed all these horrible violent murders and he hasn't used a gun because I think a gun is very final
Cop out.
and yeah, and it's quite basic compared to all of the other kills that he's performed.
Yeah.
But even Leone said the reason why he gave Art that gun is because he didn't want people to just expect these over the top kills, and he wanted to
Right.
show that he can just be very basic in the sense that he could
yeah.
just pull a gun out any second and just kill you.
That's how unpredictable he is. He
yeah.
could generally he doesn't have to be so elaborate all the time. He
Yeah.
could just quite easily pull a gun out and done and dusted.
Yeah.
It's not all a spectacle for him. I actually really like that because I generally, when I'm on like viewing it, this is my second viewing of it, and I must admit the first time I watched it, I was not paying attention. And I think I fell asleep during it actually.
How could you have fallen asleep? Fuck off.
I think I definitely did fall asleep during it. But I paid attention last night, and I just thought on initial watching, I was like, "Oh, that seems like a bit of a cop out." But I get what you mean. It doesn't need to be a cop out. It just needs to be he could just quite easily do that.
Yeah, it's very final, very shocking, and it's also the fact that Leone pointed out that obviously you don't see the likes of Myers with a gun. You just don't expect it.
Yeah.
So
No,
it's one
you're
of those
absolutely
things where
right.
it's jarring, and you don't expect him to just pull it out. And the
Yeah.
fact that, like you say, he then does continue to brutalize her in the sense that he doesn't just shoot her once; he is unloading that clip into her face, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Oh,
Which
and you see it all. It's one time. It's the one time I've noticed in horror that they showed it, because normally when it comes to face, we don't really see a lot. We'll see a side view. We'll see
Yes.
the fact we'll see a gun pointing. We don't really see the impact on the face until after. It's the fact that
No.
they showed him. You could see every entry point, and I was like,
well,
oh,
all the facial
interesting.
kills they showed like quite detailed, like the one where his face kept batting. You saw the jawline and the teeth come out of place, and like sorry if anyone's watching who's got a bad stomach. It was like say some of the jarring things that you see and what you sometimes imagine, but art takes it to the level that you probably couldn't imagine at the brutalization. So showing that. The only question I've got, again, not to slate the film or anything, the supernatural element that comes in at the
Yeah,
end,
yeah.
would you, again, just down to personal opinion and personal faith, would you think it would have been a scarier, or well, not probably scarier is probably the wrong word because it's a fucking terrifying movie, I'm not gonna lie. Would you think it's would be more palatable or more taken seriously if it was like The Strangers, or like where it was a human entity that art was, instead of making him like a supernatural being?
I think people certainly would have gotten on board with it more if the supernatural element wasn't there, because I think it does throw a lot of people off, and I completely get that. But Leone said that, with Terrifier 3, we're going to be exploring that more, why that is the case.
Right.
It's hinted at a little bit in Terrifier 2,
Yeah.
in the sense of we get introduced to the little pale girl. It hasn't necessarily been confirmed as of yet, but popular fan theories say that the little pale girl is essentially Emily Crane, which was one of Art's first victims. So we see this newspaper clipping report of this young girl being murdered at a carnival.
Yeah.
Her name's Emily Crane. And the theory is that there's a demonic entity who uses Emily's like, well, her image, essentially,
Yeah.
to connect with Art the Clown and to give him these supernatural or demonic powers. So there is definitely a narrative there, and the narrative will be furthered supposedly in Terrifier 3. So hopefully it'll make a bit more sense. But obviously at the minute it does seem like a bit of a, oh, we'll just shove it in there and we'll add another element.
Yeah.
But I actually like that.
Yeah.
I like the fact that they have that supernatural element to it without actually giving you the full explanation just yet. Because, but knowing that there is one, that there is a reason for it, because the likes of Michael and Jason and Freddy, they don't really like. There's not a lot of explanation as to how they actually get up and walk away.
They have with Jason now, because that's
why I
they've
did hesitate with
confirmed.
Jason,
Yeah,
because
they've
I know, yeah,
confirmed he's a Deadite, isn't he? He's part
he's
of
a
the
Deadite, yeah,
Evil
but there
Dead
had to be
network now.
that was, but that was way down the line though. And they don't really like expand on the, because there is a paranormal like thing to it, but it's not really expand and explained. And if they are going to do it in the third one where they elaborate more on it, it's something that a horror icon has not actually done before.
Well, like,
so I quite like that.
Everywhere in the horror industry or horror thing that like we suspend belief a lot. Like, come to the Chucky movies, we believe a toy can be possessed by the spirit of a serial killer and go around and like
Well, they
fuck things
can't.
up. He keeps on looking at us though, but
I need to look up.
but yeah, so to suspend a little bit of belief is fine. I get that, but as a whole, I think the Terrifier works, like especially the first one. The second one does delve into the supernatural, and again, I can get on board if they're giving us the narrative and telling us why that is. But with the first one, it was kind of like a bit of a shock to the system, where you think it's just a man lost his shit and went, right, I'm going to fuck a lot of things up, and that's the scary thing to me, where it could happen now. It could happen. You could be sitting in a cafe and some weird fucker in the cafe could be looking at you, and then you can try and take the piss and then end up like having the worst experience of your life. But then
I couldn't help but take photographs of each and every pose he made last night. I even went back. I was like, "Oh, that is so fucking cool."
It's so good.
But that's where the personality of art comes about, because, like, see, as a Terrifier films as well, the Terrifiers wouldn't work if art wasn't as captivating, because it would just be glorified mess, and he just had someone with like a sack on his head, or I would dare say it, Michael Myers couldn't get away with what art had done. People would have not loved it as much because of the way art goes about and brings that little bit of personality. Like when, like in the first Terrifier movie, when she's hiding in the locker and he's creeping up the stairs and he sees her and does the thing that Kay just did there before, because there's a little point at her and stuff like that. That is pure horror. That is good horror storytelling, building tension. That's where the film has its strong points, and that's where a lot of people do forget that there is more to these movies than just blood and guts. I think it's because the blood and guts are so intense and ramped up that these little elements and stuff do get lost. And and this is coming from someone that doesn't like the movie per se, because it's not my taste, but I can appreciate the elements of what they got right, because a lot of the film, like I'll talk about the second one in a second, but a lot of the first one got so much right as a horror film. And if you took, like, if we'd got like a Gore cut of the Terrifier, I think it would be like, say, like it would probably get a cinema release, because I don't think the Terrifier got a cinema release. It went straight to DVD, and people would probably appreciate it more. But now it's got the reputation as being one of the goriest horror movies out there. It's almost like the shock factor. People say, "Oh, let's watch the Terrifier tonight," because of the reputation. But rather than the reputation, there's elements to it that could be a good horror movie, or like it is a good horror movie. I'm sorry, I'm not slating it there, but it's similar.
I do know what you mean.
It's the same, like I think I had this conversation when we talked about Ghostbusters before. If you take the jokes out of Ghostbusters, you've got a scary horror film in the making with Ghostbusters, with some of the best jump scares. And again, with art, you've got some of the best tension and stuff. Some of the most stupid decision making, like it's like they've not watched horror film. Like at one point, she leaves the garage, leaves the building. I was like, yes, she's got out, and she goes the fuck back in a garage. I was like, why? Like that just makes no sense to me in the world.
That gave us the lovely scene where he's sticking a horn through the door and just he's going haywire with it. It's so good.
Yes.
But one of the things that you were mentioning there, that you were touching upon, so you mentioned it when you spoke about Michael Myers, and it's this idea of the silent killer. And I think one of the things that sets Terrifier apart from the likes of Myers, for example, it's this idea of justice. So justice is developed by a German theatre practitioner, and it's the idea that you essentially use gist or attitude in your actions to convey things without using actual words. So if you put that into the context of stage performance or theatre, I think a lot of people would generally think of mimes. Obviously, art has some striking similarities to a mime in the sense that he's all black and white, he doesn't talk, he's very theatrical. And it's one thing for a mime to motion that they're trapped in a box by, you know, doing the hand movements. But it's another thing for a mime to use their facial expression, to act panic, to quickly turn and be really theatrical and over the top. And that's something that art does throughout his entire performance. And I think that's quite a refreshing thing to see, in the sense that you don't get that with the likes of Myers, who is very cold, very rigid. And that works for Myers' character, absolutely. But we don't just want to see the same recycled tropes. We want to see something new added to the genre. And for me, that's where Art the Clown really shines, because we're getting this really over-the-top theatrical guy who still hasn't said a word. Leone even said himself, you know, even if we want to take this into clown territory and only use clowns to juxtapose this, Pennywise was used as the antithesis to Art the Clown. He looked at Pennywise and said, okay, how do we make this the complete opposite? Well, Pennywise talks, Art's not going to talk. Pennywise has color, Art's black and white. So it's this complete juxtaposition to what we've seen in the horror genre, and it's bringing something new.
It is, and I think for old timers, it's quite a scary idea that you are bringing something new to the horror genre. Even though we're begging for it, we're dying for it, but when you do it, we're like, oh, what the fuck is this? But you're absolutely right. There was some things that I was reading about last night. It was the prosthetic side of things, and why the original art didn't come back into it, because he could not stand the prosthetics, whereas the art that we have now, fucking loved it, and just decided that once it was on, it was just staying on.
And he's never took it off since.
He just keeps it on. But it just intrigued us. I had to look at pictures just to see where these prosthetics were fitting, and the sculpture of his face is so unique. The idea of just using black and white for a clown, especially when you've got, like, yes, Pennywise, but you've also got that one from American Horror Story. He was full of color as well. Clowns ideally are meant to be colorful and scary, and he is the complete opposite of that. I love, and I say this a lot on Monsters, I love the fact that he is part of this now pantheon of icons. I use that word a lot when it comes down to art, because I can't sit there and say, I think the film's great, it's wonderful. I can't do it, because it's just not my cup of tea. I'm not a Gore person to start with.
But I think that's quite an impressive statement to make, though. Even if the film, one, let's be honest, isn't the best film, two, doesn't look the best, but if you've got a character that can not just sustain, but basically overdo, or I can't think of the right word, basically like oversell itself, where people are watching for art, not the movie.
Yeah,
I think that's the only way you can do it, is describe it. Now, as you said, with Sammy not being able to watch the second one,
I couldn't do it.
I got to about the 2 hour mark, but I have watched it before and watched it like all the way through. Why is this one your favorite?
It just is.
Like, tell us your little twisted self why this one is superior. I know. I'll give it a Stu. It starts a lot better. Like the start, it's a more interesting beginning, and you start getting some interesting characters from the start. Like the family that he terrorizes, shall we say, are like interesting. I do feel sorry for the little boy. Like say, he is basically just like a teenage boy that's everything's going wrong for, and they've recently lost the father, but they don't really go into it too much about the father. Just that he was having visions, and the sketchbook was the important thing, like say around the situation there, and that's where it starts going a bit strange, shall we say? Like when the visions and like the fire
what
in
a word
room.
to use. Strange.
Yes, well that's the thing, because you think it's going to be a simple horror movie that goes from A to B, but it goes from A to Z to Q to Y, then goes back to C, and you're going, what the fuck is going on here? Because you get lost. It's a maze to try and keep up and like see what's going on, but it does keep you in the tour. Like the scene that you've got in your backdrop there is one of the most entertaining scenes with art.
He looks adorable, man.
Just because of the I can't think of the lady's name who was in with him.
Sienna. Lauren Lavera. Yeah.
Her performance in there, where she is physically terrified of art, and you see she just wants to get the fuck out the shop, and that guy behind the till, I was glad he got killed in the end, because he was doing my fucking tits in how long he was taking. He was like, oh yeah, I'll do this, I'll put this in the bag. No, I don't want a bag. I'm going to put it anywhere. Who the fuck gives away free carrier bags these days? Like, come
sorry,
on.
man.
Stop trying to be helpful.
Trying our best.
But yes. But his death as well was brutal, and like you thought, oh, he's going to look after himself, but he gets a bottle smashed to the side of his head and just flung over, and his head just gets caved in so many different ways to Sunday, and it's just like nightmare. It is just like literally.
Art doesn't discriminate.
No,
he will treat everyone the same, and he will absolutely brutalize everyone that he comes across. But again, we've got that idea of the spectacle, because after he finishes that kill, there's a mother and a son walking past the store thing, and the son's like peering into the store, and he's like, oh, they're closed. And you see Art just standing, grinning, holding this head, but he's standing amongst all of the other like animatronics and stuff, so the kid's just like, wow, that looks so cool, Mom. And again, it's this thing of Art wanting to display his kills and get this like gratification, this reaction from people of like, wow, so cool.
So how would you survive Art, though? That's the thing, because there's not many people that meet Art and lives to tell the tale. Like, physically, because the guy in the laundrette, he sit there and, like I say, all he's trying to do is have a bit of nap, and Art's washing his clothes and having a bath.
Fantastic scene, by the way. Fantastic.
It is one of the most bizarre scenes when you see him there just reading the newspaper and seeing this accident, and he's like laughing his head off.
Yeah.
And then that's the first introduced to the little girl. And to be honest, when I saw your makeup tonight, I thought your hair was going to be in the bunches and everything as well.
I should have. I should have.
Because when she came in, it was like, that was me going, what the fuck is going on as well. That was like, what the fuck moment. And then when she relieves herself, I think it's probably the best way we can see it.
Yeah.
Is just, again, the scene is there to try and upset. It's not. It's to make you feel uncomfortable, which it does a very good job. But then, as you said, it's followed up by patty cakes.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
like one of the most innocent things you could see, and it's just horrific. It's just like you're watching it going, that's like thing, and that's why I when it comes to the second movie, I enjoy the first half of the movie a lot because I'm following it. I'm feeling the narrative, and then when it starts going a bit out there, and like as you said, if we get the explanation in the Terrifier 3, great. But I was getting confused, like the little girl then possessing the phone and talking as the little boy that they've injected to kidnap, and I was like, okay, what's going on here? Then we get basically the fun house, like the madhouse that reigns supreme. But yeah, it was a lot, shall we say?
See, one of the things that I love about it is obviously, again, it's all excess and it's all the stuff that I love because I'm a horrible little gremlin and I admit that. But even if we're looking at things like, so the weapons that he uses, for example, because I've just seen someone in the chat there, oh, it's our lovely Paul, talking about a lot of the killers are a bit stale in the sense that it's the same concept.
Oh, he's right. He's absolutely right.
But with Art, what I love, and this sounds very sadistic, and I do apologize, but it's his weapon of choice. The fact that he has this cat o' nine tails type weapon that is made up of all this horrible, the sharpest objects he can find. I love it. I think it's fresh, it's new, and it is absolutely horrific. You know, the towards the end of Terrifier 2, you've got this scene where I think horror tries to stay away from involving children.
Massively, hugely.
Yeah, understandably so. Especially when you're looking at things like video nasties and you look at all the stuff that happened with Child's Play 3, and in terms of people thought, you know, kids will be affected by this if they consume this content, or what does it say about adults who consume this content? So there's a whole history of children and horror. And I think the safest way for horror to navigate that so far has been including children as the spooky ones. The children are the ones that are possessed or whatever. It's not that we inflict violence upon the children, because people tend not to like that and that puts people off. You can understand why. But at the end of Terrifier 2, where you've got this young kid, Jonathan, who is just being laced into by Art with this horrible cat o' nine tails weapon, and then we've got this like selfless act of Sienna, you know, covering her brother, and then she's getting hit, and then it swaps to slow-mo and you can hear the whip cracking, you can hear the sharp tools as they're digging into her. It is absolutely horrific, but in terms of sound design and cinematography, I think it's fantastic. And someone did make a good point that there's a lot of biblical imagery in Terrifier 2. Very obviously so, with Sienna being an angel. Yes, we are told that it's this character that her dad had envisioned and he drew in the sketchbook and stuff like that, and she's made this cosplay of this very like Dungeons and Dragons fantasy-esque character, and she's going as that for Halloween. But even Jonathan pulls up the picture at one point to Sienna and he's like, it's almost like Dad knew this is you. Maybe it was a vision, because then there's a drawing of Art the Clown on the next page and stuff like that. And it's that image of the girl holding the head of a demon. In terms of this biblical imagery, there's this whole thing of, you know, the angel slaying the demon, cutting off its head. I'm going to be honest, I don't know the Bible all too well, folks.
No, don't.
Oh, God.
It's all lies, don't worry.
Might be a surprise. I don't know. But there are a lot of biblical stories that center around these angels who are cast out from heaven who have to go through these trials to prove themselves. And Damien makes direct reference to that in the sense of so we have the lovely clown cafe in Terrifier 2, and I was doing some research on what that clown cafe is meant to symbolize with their lovely little
kind of
song.
wish I watched this now.
And Leonie had said that the whole point of that scene essentially was to act as this trial for Sienna, and this is her being put in front of this horrible demonic clown who she is already terrified of.
Yeah.
And it's this test of her will and her might to actually stand up against him. And we get that scene where so everyone's been gunned down, people have been set on fire, it's horrible, there's a dead child at a breakfast table because he was eating cereal that was covered in razor blades and crickets.
And maggots as well. I remember the maggots.
Yeah, and maggots.
Oh no. Come here,
Sienna is crawling through this while Art's just slowly creeping after her. And then she reaches in to the Art Krispies cereal box, and you can hear the blades slicing her skin. You can see that she's in all of this pain, but the closer Art gets, the more she's digging around. She's completing a trial. She's overcoming the fear, and then she pulls out this sword, which is the sword that her father gave her, and it deflects the flames, and she wakes up to her entire room just being on fire.
Yeah.
So then we have that the supernatural is bleeding into the real world, and it's, you've got all these questions of how did that happen? Was it real? And of course, her mother just blames Sienna, and she's like,
to be fair, her mother's a twat. Like, her mother's not a nice person. Oh
my God.
Yeah. But yeah, like it's one of those things. The more you talk, and again, this is why I wanted to talk to you.
Yeah,
because it's like, say, it's not like you're convincing us that this is why we should enjoy it. It's like there's things that we do miss, and there's things that we don't get, type thing. Like, say, we're not perfect, and for someone that does get it, it's so lovely or entertaining to hear, because rather than someone just coming on and saying it's gory, it's bloody, you gotta love it, but there's that
it's fucking metal.
the one thing I do want to say as well, because you mentioned it as well, the sound, like both movies as well, a lot of things it could have been, because Art, as you said, Art doesn't say a word, but he doesn't need to, but everything he does, everything blow, slice, or anything, the sound is ramped up to the levels where it's almost like your teeth's on fire. And that razor blade, there's two scenes with the razor blades. The one in the first one where he's just, they're first getting introduced, and he's just like laying into it, and you're seeing a face being cut apart, because it's not just like back or legs, it's hands, it's everything where you don't want to be cut. But then in the Terrifier 2, going back to the most horrific scene as well, the bedroom scene, the first cut on her face isn't just on her face or her cheek. It's down her head, right through her eyeball. You see her eyeball get cut in half. And that's just one of the most horrific things. When you said like the razor blades and stuff, it just jumped back into the imagery into my face.
Fucking eyes water.
And it'll never leave you, type thing. But that's one thing about these movies as well. You will never forget them once you've seen them. They will stay with you. They will, good or bad. It'll always be a reference point as well. So
sorry, go on.
No, it's fine. Go on.
I was just gonna kind of reiterate what you've just been saying there. I get for all that I could not face or finish, or even I couldn't do it with the second one. I knew by talking with you, I would want to watch it by the end of it, because that's what I do. Someone has to like jeer it on almost for us to be like, fuck yeah, I want to watch this. And I kind of want to watch it, but I kind of don't want to watch it by myself, because I'm going to need somebody to react.
We can have a sleepover. That's okay.
Yeah. Done deal. Right, you go up there. Sorry, I've got dogs climbing all over us.
So Kate, your friend in the chat, Donna O'Brien, who won a t-shirt as well. Your t-shirt has been ordered as well. Wants a shout out as well as your Art Terrifier buddies as well. She doesn't want to be left behind.
No, big shout out to Donna. She's gonna get an Art the Clown tattoo shortly, I believe.
Oh, God.
Referencing this very moment. Because honestly, we absolutely love that scene, and we laugh about it all the time. We even changed our work desktop screens to have the little scenes from that, because it's just so it's hilarious. Where Sienna is absolutely terrified of this clown. She is visibly shaking. And we've got this super serious shot of Sienna being terrified, and then it just flicks to this in the background, and he's just having the time of his life. And then every time it changes back to him, he's doing something else. So you've got the sunflower glasses, and then you turn back to him, and he's doing this, and he's having a great time. And then he's got these horrible eyes on springs that he's just bouncing around and having a great time with.
Have you noticed though that Art always turns when he gets told off though? Because like in both movies, because there's a turning point. Like when he was in the pizza shop, he got told off for shitting and doing horrific things in the toilet.
This is an interesting point. One of the theories regarding why Art does what he does is it's tied to a bit of misogyny, and there are theories flying around that essentially Art either has some mother issues or he's had a run-in with a woman in his past, and it's turned him into a bit of a misogynist, in the sense that, so we have the character of the cat lady in the first Terrifier film, and she's crazy, and it's assumed that she's the mother of Emily Crane, the little pale girl demon type thing.
Oh, that would make sense, especially with the fact that like a doll, and she was absolutely convinced it was real.
Yeah, it's this scene with the doll. She refers to the doll as Emily.
Yeah.
Right.
So people are sort of drawing conclusions there. It hasn't been confirmed yet. But obviously there's this scene where Art has supposedly taken Emily, and the mother's looking for the doll, and she's like, oh, where's it gone? And she finds Art, and then she's like, oh, please give me the doll back, it's my baby. And then she turns around, she goes, have you ever felt a mother's touch? And it's really odd and really random. And then she's on the floor and she's hugging this
cradling him.
Yeah,
cradling him and stroking him,
and he's sucking his thumb and he's going along with it. And then the next scene is obviously we're greeted by the lovely Art just sauntering out as a woman because he's done horrific things to her.
And I honestly wish
the
to God.
Silence of the Lambs moment, shall we say?
Honestly, I was waiting for
goodbye horses. Would you fuck me?
Honestly, I went to go because I thought it was a common moment. I genuinely thought she was going to be all right in that moment. I was like, oh, okay, she's giving him a cuddle. It's all okay, hair strokes and everything. I'll just go and stick a log on the fire. And then I come back to that.
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
That's the thing. You never turn away from the screen. Never turn away.
No.
But then the other turning point, the second where he gets told off for the second time, is when he's in the store. As you said, when he's trying on all the things, and it's hilarious. But soon he puts the blower in his mouth. You got to pay for that shit, and he wasn't happy about that.
Yeah, so maybe that argument of the whole he's had a run-in with a woman, like a lot of people think as well, maybe it was a mother figure. Because whenever, like you say, whenever someone tells him off, whenever someone says to him like you can't do that, that's when he gets really angry that no, I can. And I'm going it almost like a defiant child. When they've been told off, he doubles down on it, and he's really in your face about
doubles
it.
Down. Doubles down and get a spike in the head.
I mean, he takes these temper tantrums quite seriously. Like, there's no holding back on him. I tell you what, I did get from the first one was a lot of feeling of, and I think I said this to Paul, I felt like I was watching Cradle of Fear at one point. The whole vibe and aesthetic of that movie just took me back to Cradle of Fear, and I was like, is Danny Filth going to come out somewhere at some point? Is Emily Booth around? I was like, but I actually really loved the aesthetic of it. Is that the same in the second one, or is it kind of evolved, like color wise? Because in the colors, it's very browns and greys and dirties, and
you can tell they're using an expensive camera in the second one. Like the photography side and the film side of it, it's night and day with the shots. The film's like a director of photography in this movie. In the second one, you can tell it wasn't just someone saying point and click as I think it was in the first one.
Is the palette though changed from grimy to a bit more brighter? Because,
it's very 80s. Like we've got lots of muted like oranges and blues, cool tones. But again, this was another thing that Leone has addressed, in the sense that the first one, because it was crowdfunded, obviously they were on a bit more of a budget with that one. And he liked the vibe of the like grindhouse horror. And he said that for
Terrifier completely.
And he said for Terrifier 3 they want to revisit that.
Right.
They want it to be
cool.
more grindhouse. But when you contrast that with the fact that it's meant to be a Christmas film, it's going to be
really, really interesting. I must admit, I for all this is not my film, and I wish it was, because he is so. I want to be on that fucking hype train. Like, I want to be like a part of it. But watching all of the reaction, like especially from the second one coming out, I've never seen a divide.
Yeah.
Like a proper full-on divide. It was half and half. People either really fucking loved it or they really fucking hated it. And but then watching everyone's reaction to the third one, it's like, hang on, you didn't? I don't understand. Like, you didn't like the second one. Now you're on the fucking hype for the third one. But I must admit, I watched that trailer and I was like, oh, that seems pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie.
That's the thing. Like, as you said, art is like, if you take art out of the Terrifier movies, he could literally go into any franchise and make it new and make it better, which is a weird thing to say. Like, if you put art in the Scream movies, it would amp the Scream movies up to a 10th degree. If you had, like, as you said, we had Freddy versus Jason. Imagine Freddy versus art. Like what fucked up imagination, or like what kind of that could play on type thing.
I think when you come down to verses with art, you need somebody who is the complete opposite to him. So you need the fucking chatterbox. You need someone for art to be like totally contempt of that. Yeah, I don't mind fucking this person up, just to get him to shut the fuck up.
Like, how many times
Pennywise?
Pennywise versus art? Oh god.
No pun intended. I think Terrifier, Art the Clown, would absolutely clown on Pennywise. Like, he really would.
Honking at them dead lights, but yeah. So, as you said with the third one, it's with it coming out, like, when's it coming out? When's it due? Because is it this year or next year?
Hasn't been announced fully yet.
Right.
I'm sure I saw somewhere, and you could be completely wrong, but I'm sure someone said November 2024. But I could be completely and utterly fucking wrong. No matter that, it'll come out next week or something, and I'll be like, okay, you were so wrong.
Wish. So,
do you think this will get a theatre release? Just with how? No.
Already Leone has said that he took the script idea and stuff like that to a few production companies, and straight away they said no, we are not doing that, because I watched an interview with him recently, and he said that basically with this one they want to go beyond the limits, not just of Terrifier but of horror in general. So like we said earlier, horror tries not to include children in its violence, because it's just one of those things. There's essentially this pyramid in theories about, like, the pyramid of taboos, essentially. And violence against children is on there. But I don't know whether you guys have seen Saw 10.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So for me, spoilers for anyone that hasn't seen it, it was quite interesting that they put a child in the trap. And I was sitting there thinking, wow.
I have never tried to scratch a screen on my television screen as much to get that child out of that situation.
But saying that though, that was the thing that Kramer didn't plan though. That was like the only thing he didn't have planned.
No, he didn't foresee that one.
No.
But when it comes to children in horror, we talked about this for an upcoming episode on Monsters, Sleepaway Camp. Now that is a whole fucking horror film full of children.
Now, kids, we're too young to have even heard of this movie.
It is one of the greatest and most terriblest horror films of the 1980s. It's 40 years old. But it is full of kids, and there's some kids who fucking deserve to get what they get, and there's some that don't. And that is the most uncomfortablest watching, is the kids that don't. That's pretty, be honest, it's probably the last time I've seen full-on children in a horror film.
Saying that though, we've seen one quite recently.
Go on.
Evil Dead Rises.
Oh yeah, there's kids in that.
The kids didn't make it out of there alive.
Well, one did.
Well, the one that looked like she was an extra in the Poltergeist, but still.
She was fucking class. But I do get what you mean with the kids thing, and it is starting to kind of like creep in a little bit more.
Yeah.
Mike Flanagan's used obviously a lot of children when it comes to House on Haunted Hill, but that is not kind of the same aspect of horror, is it? That's more.
But saying that though, the kids made it out of Midnight Mass, so the two kids lived. So
Well, it's this whole argument that people talk about all the time about us becoming desensitized to horror.
Yeah. Oh,
And, you know, yeah,
massively.
it's one of
Massively.
those things where the more we consume, it goes back to that thing I was originally talking about with transgression, where one limit creates a further limit to be breached.
yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, when The Exorcist came out, people hated it. They were terrified. It was so scary. The original Exorcist. Now we've got The Exorcist Believer, and I think it's nothing compared to the original Exorcist.
Well, no, it's never going to beat the original. My mother-in-law is still, to this day, that scared of just the idea of The Exorcist. She won't even look at me fucking trainers. I have Exorcist Vans, and she refuses. She doesn't even like us wearing them in the house. The idea of that film has scarred her. She won't even talk about it. But desensitized children, man. Conventions, Carolyn, we worked them for the last few years, and she has. I mean, our horror is starting to. It's getting more because she only ever used to do a Pennywise, very small Pennywise drawn, all bought by kids.
Yep.
All bought by children.
I think the argument with desensitizing, like, say, that goes back so long, like they can blame it on whatever things. It's like that argument all over again. I don't think it's desensitizing to movies and stuff. I think it's desensitizing to bad writing or bad movies. That's the thing, because as you've said, as we've spoke about now, there's a lot of horror movies now that become stale and they try and push the boat out. Like we've had a few okay ones, like Evil Dead Rising. Nothing really new to come home at, but it was a good movie. The recent Halloween trilogy.
Now, hey, I was kind.
The recent Halloween trilogy, like we say, we've got a great first part, an okay second part, and a horrific third part.
Yeah, so let's all agree on that one.
Don't. I'd just gotten my tattoo done as well and everything. I was sitting in the cinema staring at it like, why?
Why, Michael?
But like as you said, now with the Terrifier, we don't know what's going to be coming next. So we've got like a trailer for Terrifier 3, and it's going to be a Christmas movie. And already, if they're going to ramp it up, like the only thing that terrifies you more at Christmas is seeing kids getting hacked up. Like as you said in the poster, if it's Santa art, then fuck me, we're all in for a ride there. But it's strange because I love horror movies that much. Like when we do horror movie season, like and Sammy does, like on the Monday nights does the monster movies. It's so entertaining because being scared is so fun. But these films go beyond scaring you. They go beyond. I think literally the name does fit what you experience, and it is a Terrifier. But again, what would like say you with you loving these movies, Kay? What would you do for the third one? How would you ramp it up? How would you take it to that next level?
I am not the mastermind that is Damien Leone.
No, but what would you like? What would you like to see? Like what you haven't already seen from art? What are you looking for?
Well, first of all, yes, the kid. This is nobody take this out of context. Don't clip this or anything. The kid is fair game in my eyes.
Yeah.
Like this child walks down the stairs, is watching, is all, oh, Santa. It's not Santa, surprise, it's art, it's a clown. And if like even in the poster, you see it just down the bottom. Where is it? Here. He has decorated the tree with intestines.
Oh, what?
I don't know whether it's on that poster or whether it's just in the trailer. I might be wrong, but he's decorated the tree with intestines. Again, goes back to this whole thing of the spectacle, exhibition, and all that. So yeah, it's one thing, like what Saw 10 did, to include the child in the violence. It's another to decimate the child and massacre the child in the violence and then display it. So for me, that is a limit that I would like to see Terrifier 3 push to.
Right.
So one of those things, like nothing's off the table.
Yeah, well, to me, that's the whole pull of the Terrifier franchise is that, you know, it's this no holds barred. We will do the most horrific, heinous stuff you've ever seen, and you're going to sit down, you're going to watch it, and you're going to like it.
So the only thing I'm going to ask, if the director, like I say, I'm going to get all big-headed, if the director decides he wants to watch this podcast, please leave animals alone. No cats, no dogs.
No cats, no dogs. We're totally cool. Like, kill the kids, just don't fucking touch the cats.
Yeah.
Well, there was a possum in Terrifier 2. I mean...
But that was already dead, so it wasn't like you didn't see the reaction type thing. But yeah.
What's your argument with people who say that Terrifier 2 is just gore for gore's sake?
Oh, don't get me started on this. We need a whole other episode for this. So the short version, my undergraduate dissertation focused on what critics dubbed torture porn. So that was the likes of Hostel and Saw.
Hostel, yeah.
And critics use that term to detract from this subgenre of horror and say that, it's just gore for the sake of gore. There's no narrative and it's terrible and blah, 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 blah.
Where Saw was one of the cleverest horror movies that has been made in the last couple of years, 20 years.
You don't have to tell me.
Yeah. I am a big Saw fan, even though I don't like gore. Saw fucked me up, and I did not see that twist coming. Fuck the Sixth Sense for twists. Saw was the better one.
That was so good, but with gore, I get it on the tin when you look at Terrifier, especially if I was someone who wasn't necessarily immersed in the horror genre or anything like that, and I was just a casual viewer, someone who every now and then at Halloween, what should we watch? Let's put on a scary film. What have you heard about? Oh, Terrifier. Cool, let's put that on. Because I know some of my friends were the same, where they do like horror films, but they're not, they don't love it. And they had heard me talking about Terrifier. I would say, oh, I'm getting a new tattoo, and they're like, oh, we'll give it a watch. And they got maybe halfway through the first film, and they were like, what the hell is this? Why have you made us watch this? It is horrific, and it's just gore for the sake of gore. It's just gross. And I had this whole had a little mini lecture with them. Little teaching moment, pulled out the whiteboard,
come with me, I'm gonna take you on a journey, guys.
So this is gonna sound very convoluted, and I get it if people don't want to get on board with this, and it's fine. But one of the things that I found really interesting in horror scholarship is the idea of catharsis. So it's the idea that a lot of people who enjoy horror films do so because they've suffered trauma or because they've suffered horrible things in their life, and watching a horror film gives them the opportunity to suspend their belief, like what you were saying before, step outside of their own lived experience, and just confirm and validate themselves that horrible things do unfortunately happen in the world. Because I think there's a lot of toxic positivity that goes around at the moment. And that's not good for anyone, especially if you're struggling with mental health or anything like that. It can be quite a horrible thing to sit through when everyone's just saying to your face, fuck your ideas up, smile, life's great, it's got sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes you need to watch a homicidal clown and say, no, life sucks.
I love that answer. I absolutely love that answer. That life's shit. Let's go and watch some fucked up clown.
Get your anger out.
No, you're absolutely right. It's half the reason why we watch horror is to, look up and go, it's okay. That didn't happen
my
to
life
us.
Isn't that bad.
That didn't happen to us. We're all right.
I'm not strung upside down getting cut from genitals to neck.
No,
so that's fine.
I thought we were done with that bit.
Oh no, we'll never get done with this bit. I did promise though, because normally we do have clips and stuff during the episodes. I did promise that I wouldn't show any clips of the movie, just in case anyone got upset or YouTube decided to take us down again. So that would have been quite an interesting tale to tell with a few of these.
We didn't get taken down for Quiplash, but Terrifier would definitely do it.
So I know we've talked about the Terrifier as well, but going off to the genre itself, what other horror movies would you say is your bag that are your go-to? Even to give some of the people in the chat some recommendations that they might not have looked at.
This is a good question, because I feel like I'm a bit all over the place with my horror, in the sense that a lot of people will find their subgenre. It might be paranormal, for example, and that is their bag. And for reasons I've spoken about previously on your lovely podcast, me and Supernatural have not gotten along.
Yes, I remember that now, because we were going to get you on to have them stories about them. Yes.
Yeah.
Now that's going to be an interesting one again.
Again, long story short, exorcisms in real life aren't what they're made out to be on the films and on the cameras. But they're still not fun.
No.
So me and supernatural horror didn't get along for a long time. So when it comes to the horror that I like, a lot of people will generally look at my tattoos and they'll be like, okay, you must love The Nun. I absolutely hate The Nun. I think it's a terrible film. Okay, you must love Michael Myers. I did. Then they ruined him. Okay, you must love Saw. Yes, that one I still love.
Mhm.
But we don't talk about Spiral because that was absolutely horrific and not a
Oh
Saw film.
fuck! I really fucking like Spiral.
No.
I absolutely despise from 3 up until Jigsaw. Like I have found this whole new fucking love for the Saw franchise, and the first 2 unreal. Hate the middle bit. Fucking on board for Jigsaw, and I really like Spiral. I thought it was such a different take. I actually didn't fucking hate Chris Rock for a second.
That was the thing. Spiral itself wasn't a great movie, but Chris Rock, let's get the surprise out here, isn't irritating in this movie. He's not Chris Rock in this movie.
No, he was. I
didn't want to slap him like Will Smith did, but so that's.
But I gotta say, the new one, honestly,
No.
that and Evil Dead Rise is kind of like where I'm at of this year's films. Like them are my top 2.
See, I like the Saw one, but it probably the only thing that was disappointing about this Saw one, the new Saw 10, it probably was the most predictable of the franchise. Like everything that went on, you could like from the start, you thought he was going to get cancer.
But is it only predictable because we've seen 9 other Saw films?
Possibly, yes. I'll give you that one. Yes, yeah. But
I'm not that clever. I'm not clever enough to go. I'm not. The only time I've ever felt clever in the last bit was watching Midnight Mass, and you instantly straight away what the fuck was going on, and I even shocked myself. But I am quite naive when it comes to movie watching. I just sit and watch. I am literally watching as it happens, and I can't quite sit and my husband can work shit out in the first few seconds and go, called it. Like I can't do that. So I love the fact that I went on this whole part with just John Kramer, just John throughout the whole entire thing, and I didn't fucking see it all coming. I didn't, because I'm that stupid.
No.
Bless you.
No.
So, other than
I realise
Saw,
I've just completely ignored your question, Paul. So.
That's fine. Don't worry.
What was the question?
The horrors that I do like.
All right, okay.
It happens a lot, though. Don't worry. Sam just blows over us all the time. It's like, oh, what did Paul say? Fuck Paul. It's fine.
No, to answer your question, the horrors that I do like, I really enjoy the ones that make you think. In contrast to Terrifier, which I feel like you don't have to do a lot of thinking because it's just a lot of overt in-your-face gore. I really enjoyed
during
Men.
the Terrifier, you'd be scared of that. But yeah. No, Men I've heard a lot about. I've heard a lot about. A lot of people say it's the most fucked up film they've seen in a long time.
Oh boy, yeah, it is crazy. I also love Jordan Peele's films. I loved Us. Oh my god, loved Us.
I'm one of the only people that like Nope. I thought Nope was really entertaining.
Nope was fucking fantastic. It was so cleverly done. The only one I can't get away with is what's the cloning one?
Us, the one that I like.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's the other one. It's the Get Out. I absolutely adore Get Out. Us. There was just some bits.
I thought the acting in Us was brilliant. Like the kids and everything was like normally kids in horror, as you said, are annoying and you want them to die, but they don't touch. But these kids, you want them to live.
Is it Lupita Nyong'o? Yes. My goodness, she was fucking phenomenal in that. But no, I thought was so fucking clever. The thing is with Jordan Peele, he doesn't have to be overly fucking clever. It doesn't have to be so convoluted that it doesn't make sense. Even though Us, for me, it's just me, because everyone else I've spoke to gets it. I just can't for some reason. But me and my sister were talking about him yesterday, actually, just how it doesn't have to be the most overcomplicated story to get a point across.
That's interesting though, because a lot of people's criticisms with Nope was that they didn't get it.
Oh really?
Yeah, because it's at its heart, it's a film about exploitation. And we're looking at exploitation for capitalist gain. You've got this monkey who, for capitalist gain, he's on the show and stuff like that, and he's tried horribly, and then obviously it all backfires, and he goes on his little rampage, and then it's the same thing with the alien. They're exploiting it for money, and then eventually the alien's like, no thank you, I'm gonna deal with that. Yeah.
It's the whole thing of it's a so simple fact that you can't keep an animal in a cage, and it
Yeah.
was just that simple idea that spanned into what we got. I just thought we watched it it was our New Year movie, and I was just mesmerized, even though I was absolutely convinced that what we were looking at was a jellyfish.
Understandable. You'd be forgiven.
So that's what an alien could look like. We never know. The truth is out there, as Mulder keeps telling us.
But yeah, I absolutely adore Jordan Peele's films.
So what other ones would you say, Kate?
Oh, well, not this one wasn't fully Jordan Peele. I know Jordan Peele was involved, I think, in the writing for it, but Nia DaCosta's Candyman.
Right.
Oh my
Oh.
God. Love that film.
Oh,
I got it
totally
on the
agree
second
with you.
watching, because the first watching I was expecting like just basically more like the Candyman that we got originally, and it was much more. So I kind of was disappointed when I first watched it, but I enjoyed it more for the second watching. It's one that you can watch and you get more from it, I believe.
Yeah. I feel like that. I watched it by myself. I watched it when because once a year I come and watch my mum's dogs while they go on holiday, and I made the dog sit and watch it with us. And I'm again, this is just me. I have to just watch as it happens and just go along with it as it happens. But when I was deconstructing it all to my husband on the phone, that's when I fell in love with it. When I finally started to like deconstruct it and talk about it, and I was like, and just at the end, I just went, "Holy fucking shit, that was such a good fucking film."
So why did you like it though, Kay?
Honestly, this is probably not the answer people expect, but I love the soundtrack in it and the sound design. It is fantastic. It's the same reason I really enjoy the Babadook. I think the sound design in that is just beautiful. I remember when I watched the Babadook for the first time, and it's the scene where they have the little pop-up book.
Yeah.
And the mother hears the knock at the door, and then all of the sounds really ramping up, and then it goes completely silent when we see this book sitting on a doorstep, and it's just I love sound design. And the soundtrack for Candyman, it's beautiful how it incorporates that the soundtrack from the original film, and there's little like hallmarks and nods to it, but it's still its own thing, and it sounds so, I don't know, it maybe sounds a bit weird to say, but it sounds so full. And when you're talking about a film that's about gentrification and societies that are full but then are excluded and pushed out, I think it's interesting that they encapture that in the soundtrack. And the way it like weaves its way in throughout the film slowly as it like builds, as the tension builds, it's just fantastic.
But I think that with a lot of horror movies, like live and die by the soundtrack or the sounds that they use as well. Like as I mentioned with the Terrifier movies as well, a big thing is the sound, because even if you turn away, you can't not hear what's going on as well. And if you go back to the classics like Halloween, at the soundtrack for Halloween, like Jaws has one of the most scariest sounds you'll ever hear. If you ever hear Durdum when you're in the sea, you'll be getting the fuck out of that water as quick as possible. I don't care who says, but a lot of people don't give credit to like the sound that you hear in these movies as well. I think that is a lost art. Well, not a lost art. It's an art that's underappreciated.
Overlooked. Like Terrifier, like you say, one of my favorite things about Terrifier is there's this like really low bassy reverb that plays whenever one of the characters is having a really like pertinent moment where they come to a realization about something, or something horrible has happened to them. And obviously the vibes in Terrifier 2 are very much like 80s vibes, so it fits with that completely. It's also like, similar to what Stranger Things have done, where it takes you back to that, and you're sitting and you're reliving, rewatching that sort of era, that time, because of all these sounds that were thrown around, or the colors and stuff like that. And Terrifier 2 does that as well, where we are taken from that grainy grindhouse horror from the first film into this transformed, beautiful, almost Terrifier 2 film with these lovely sounds that are so full. Again, like the reverb bass, it gives you that feeling of you're sitting watching it, and when you hear that sound come in, you kind of go, oh, and you have a moment yourself to sort of reflect on what's just happened.
Sounds a big. We had a interesting conversation. We had a few actually on soundtracks when it comes to monsters. And we had a really good one on Idle Hands, because that is obviously heavily filled with
that is just
music.
A 90s place.
Yeah, it really is.
And stuff.
It is. But this is what we were talking about, was just we back in like the 90s, we were going to movies for soundtracks. If you look at Queen of the Damned, that is that is probably the first example I can think of. I went to see that film because of the soundtrack. Jonathan Davis wrote the whole soundtrack. I was going for.
Well, the soundtrack
that.
was better than the movie, shall we say?
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely.
But
but then you've got the flip side of it, where you've got this the actual score and not the soundtrack. So when it comes to The Thing, there is no score, and you are reliant upon yourself to actually feel the emotion you're meant to be feeling at that time. Whereas in other movies, you have a score that will depict to you what it is you should be feeling. And I love talking about music
go back
and how
to the
it makes
old
you feel.
go back to the old Universal horror movies as well, where there was no sound or no music at all. Like Dracula was done with looks and
Dracula has at the beginning it's this what is it? It's ballet music. That is the only bit of music that is played, and it's right at the beginning of the title score, and then that's it. Zoom. Completely and utterly gone. But
is there music in the Invisible Man with the killer that is Claude Rains?
No, I don't think Claude Rains, my Lord and Savior Claude Rains. I can't remember. I don't think
like
there
you didn't
is.
think the Invisible Man was going to get mentioned on the Terrifier episode, but yeah.
He is the boy. He is the boy of the Monster Podcast. Even though he's been taken off his throne, he's still the best.
So with the horror genre, as we say, like Saw's had 10 movies, Scream's now coming up to Scream 7. Like I think there's 13 Halloween movies, and so many Friday the 13th.
How many Friday the 13th now? 13?
There's
Too
more.
many.
11, 16?
There's
I
a lot.
did a Jason episode not long ago. I should remember this.
How many do you like? I know you'll probably say unlimited, but how many more movies do you think the Terrifier has in it? Because as you said, if it's going to keep ramping up that level,
you are hitting number 3 right now.
Yeah,
I think 4. I think 4 is the line. Like, as much as I love the franchise, it's something that Leone himself has commented on. He has agreed that, you know, after a while it does just become a bit of a cash grab. And we're just sort of exploiting these characters because yes, fan bases love them. But another point that he addressed is that the longer these franchises go on, obviously they surpass their original intended narrative. So then they're having to come up with all these convoluted storylines that don't really make sense and they don't really tie in. And then you get timelines and we don't know which timeline we're following. Michael Myers. And it just becomes
Marvel or
a
Supernatural.
It just becomes a mess. But also, the more you bring that character back, this is kind of a double-edged sword in the sense that the more we are exposed to a character, the more we take ownership of that character as fans. So what you see with Myers and Voorhees and stuff like that is the fans see this character, and the more they're exposed to them, the less afraid they become, especially in horror. And then that character just becomes like, oh, he's so cute. Oh my god, it was so funny, you know. And Leone,
great impression.
He's so cute. I can fix him, you know.
Oh god,
I don't want to.
Well, it's one of those things.
Just give him a bit of a wash,
himself,
just like clean him up a little bit. Yeah.
Stay away. Leone himself has said that he doesn't want that to happen for art. His goal is that he wants to remind people with Terrifier 3 that no, this guy is disgusting. He is vile and abhorrent, and his behaviors are absolutely horrific. He wants you to feel disgusted, and he wants you to sit back and go, this guy is an absolute maniac, and I hate him.
So do you think there's a bit of a responsibility in the fan base as well, just to say chill the fuck out and just enjoy what you've got?
It would be very refreshing if it was just 3-4 movies, because horror is well known for like, let's fucking drain this.
Yeah.
So it would be really refreshing if that were to be the case, and maybe like give it a wide berth and then kind of come back to it, but don't fucking milk it because that you feel that's what the people want.
Everyone's looking for a franchise. Like, even if like you look at not horror, if you look at like everyone's looking for the next Harry Potter or next Jurassic Park, where they can just keep like they don't even have to make a good movie; they just bring it out, and people will pay money to go and see it. But as you said, this does feel like a different breed of horror movies, where most horror movies that go to straight to DVD or don't get a cinema run, they probably wouldn't get there. But the quality, as you said, like you can see the quality from Terrifier 1 to Terrifier 2 getting better. And even in the trailer for Terrifier 3, it looks like it's at a higher level as well. So it's definitely doing something right in that way. Again, it's not going to be for everyone's taste. It's not going to make everyone happy, but it is refreshing that this is out there, and this is kind of doing
I've
its
just
own
read
thing.
have you read the last comment?
Yeah, we both read it. Yeah.
What does it say? Failure to
launch remake with art.
Oh, dear.
Well done, Dave.
He'll be laughing at himself.
Also, Chris on art in a rom-com.
God.
But to be fair, the first, I would class, like, say, almost the first Terrifier was almost like romantic comedy, like just a poor clown sees a pretty girl across the table at a cafe, giving her eyes, but then a pissed best friend makes a tit about herself, and so he has to take action.
I quite liked her. I really liked her, especially when she shouts out from the car, "My friend needs to have a piss." I was like, "Yep, that's the kind of friend I want."
We've all been there. So again, when we do the review episodes, I know it's not reviewing just one movie; it's reviewing the franchise. I know it's going to be a pretty stupid question to ask you here. If you're going to rate this out of 5, what score would you give it?
6 dismembered fingers out of 5.
Right.
Oh.
So we can create that graphics at some point. Yeah.
Ooh, I like that.
So there's nothing you would change in this movie at all. Like, going back, there's anything that you would do differently?
So, right, the only criticism that I can kind of get on board with is the misogyny side of things. So, in no way am I an expert on gender-based violence and stuff like that in horror. It's not my area to talk about misogyny and gender-based violence, but I have done some reading on it, so I know a little bit, but I'm not an expert, so don't come for me. So a lot of people critique the Terrifier films by saying it feels very misogynistic. There's a lot of exploitation going on there, especially with the hacksaw scene with Dawn. We can argue, for the sake of cinema, that having her clothes on would have meant she was harder to saw through, but
it would have clogged it up.
Like
it's science. It's that's friction does happen.
Come on, people. But yeah, like for me, was it a bit unnecessary that she was completely naked? Yes. And I think it's disproportionate with the sense that when you look at Terrifier 2, so art does kill men throughout Terrifier 1 and 2, but someone did make a good point that I saw online of art seems to only kill men when they're in the way of the woman he's targeting. Yeah, and it was quite interesting when I thought about it that way, because I was like, you're right. Actually, yeah, it's just men that are in the way of the women that he's targeting. But it's disproportionate in the sense that we see Dawn completely naked in the hacksaw scene. But in Terrifier 2, Brooke's boyfriend, partner, whatever he is, I don't know, when he gets his sausage chopped off, we're not really seeing a lot.
He might not have not a lot to see, but let's be honest, it might have been cold that day. But yeah, I'm trying to give the guy some credit.
No, but I do get what you mean. It's the idea that it's all right for the woman to be on display, but oh God, good God, do not show a penis getting cut off. But we'll go and drive. Oh,
is that
I must admit, there is obviously after it's done, after the deed is done, art does then go up to the car window and he's holding it up against the car window.
Amazing.
So, like, it is there. It is there.
You are really fucking selling this film.
He's like wiping it across the window in front of his girlfriend. Like, look.
This was in your mouth earlier, but yeah, sorry. I did take it there.
It is a souvenir.
Sorry. Again, just to play argument's sake, I know this probably isn't the right way to say it, but to me, and again, probably to a lot of people, seeing a woman in that display, again, it's more scary. But let's be honest, it's more realistic. If a serial killer was going to target people, again, it's not nice to say, but that is a more realistic situation that potentially could happen. And
yeah, but that's one of the pros for me in the sense of the Terrifier films, is that we have Dawn, who is strung up and she is naked, but they haven't ventured into sexualized horror in the sense of we're not seeing art doing things to her.
No.
And for me, that's a line that if they crossed that, then I would probably be like,
That's I get that. They didn't
They didn't
there
go
was
full
no
Evil Dead type thing.
No, there was no sexualization whatsoever. Yes, that woman was completely naked, upside down, but to me that was not sexualized. That was just
it's probably
it
like
was
Kia
just
said.
convenient.
It's more
Yeah.
function because as Kia said, it's easier to saw someone in half if they haven't got layers on. That's going to
Oh,
clog
can
up
we
the saw.
please stop talking about this scene?
But that's what I like, is the fact that the focus isn't on sexualized violence, which
Yeah.
it often
Yes.
has been the case in horror, and
Mhm.
it is solely
God, yes.
focused. It's solely focused on brutality and gore, which that is what the
Mm.
franchise
the-
sets itself out to be.
It's the kill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not. It's nothing else but the kill.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But yes.
I like that.
But I think
Kinda.
I like the way that ended though there. So we'll leave it. It's based on the kill rather than that. So yes. So I'll not ask Sammy to rate this film because we know it's not going to feature highly. But yes.
No, not for any other reason than it's just this is not my horror. And to be honest, I don't know if it's even made for me. Like, as in, I like older horror. I love the Universal Monsters and 80s horror, 70s horror. So I don't know if it is actually made for me, but I've thoroughly enjoyed talking about it. Again, this is why I love doing stuff like this because it gets us excited about it.
Hmm.
Like I couldn't do it myself, so yeah, you tell me why you like it, and I'll see
Well, that's
how I
the thing,
feel about that.
because everyone's got different opinions. Like, and no one's ever going to agree on anything. But like, it's coming on and like having the conversation, and
Mhm.
rather than like say, as you find out with a lot of internet forums or groups where people mention the Terrifier, they just say the word no, not going to watch, and it's like why? It's not.
Gore.
It's gore. But
It's gore. It's a gore
but
fest. That's all it is.
yes, it has got a lot of gore in, but there's a lot of other elements in it as well.
But we've
Again,
managed to talk for an hour and a half
mhm,
about one character.
yep. So he's doing something right.
It can't just be all gore.
Yes. So, is there anything else you want to add before we wrap that up there, Kay?
No, essentially just you covered it all there. But yeah, I think Terrifier and stuff like that, it's one of those things where a lot of people will just brush it off and say, no, it's not for me. But for me, the best thing that anyone can do is just give everything a chance. Or even if you can't bring yourself to watch it, fair enough. But I understand. But I love it. I love discussions like this
Yeah.
where people can just, I can share what I love about it, and you don't have to agree with me, and that's completely fine, and I don't expect you to agree with me. But for me, what I thrive on is horror theory. It's why I do what I do. And for me, just getting to share some of that theory, and if someone can take that theory and apply it to something that they enjoy, I might not be a big fan of Dracula, but if you can take a theory of transgression or spectacle or whatever and apply it to that text and go, oh, actually, I see how that works, then my job is done and I'm happy.
But that's the thing. I always love the conversation, and I love seeing people getting excited about the thing as well. The excitement part as well, seeing you light up, which probably is the wrong thing to say at the thing when you're talking about basically the decimation of a body or Art beating his horn. Like you smiled the same way at Art being silly as Art killing someone. It's just been or rubbing salt in someone's wound. But yeah, so yes, so. We are, just to let you know, sorry guys, we aren't live next Sunday. We are going to be doing
absolutely fucking not.
No, we are doing a pre-recorded midweek episode, so that will be out on Sunday. But we are doing Nick Cage movies next week. So we are delving into the madness that is Nick Cage. Tomorrow night is a very good episode. I've watched clips of it because when I've been putting together the Pet Cemetery episode where Dan and Sam from Monsters Up North from 7 o'clock tomorrow. They're talking about the Pet Cemetery franchise. Now that is a good franchise, and the remake is decent. I'll give it its due. The prequel, I do have views on, but me and Samuel have a conversation about that in private. Trekking Up North is back on Friday. The lovely Graham and Goodwill are back, and they're not doing Lower Decks this time. They are doing a random episode of Trek this time. So see what random world or random hell they end up in at some point. But then we are going to be changing the format to the Sunday episode a little bit. Not too much, so don't get scared, guys. We are going to be trying more focused on episodes like tonight's episode where we are reviewing films, reviewing franchise, reviewing TV shows. Because let's be honest, that's what me and Sammy actually like. we enjoy it so much, and finding out
Yeah,
new
we
things
kind of
is
shot ourselves in the foot by starting off by doing top fives, because then we kind of like pigeonholed ourselves into, oh, that's what we're going to be doing is top fives. And we're like, oh, but we really want to fucking just talk about films. That's all we want to do.
But yes, don't worry, we won't just talk about the Goonies. And Kia, have you
We've
got
already
anything?
done the Goonies. It's okay. It's covered.
It'll come back one more time. Oh, Goonies never say die. Anything you want to promote there, Kia? Anything that you've got working on or you've got planned?
If I can. I
Of
mean,
course.
it's not necessarily my thing. I'm just being a little bit of a cheerleader for it at the minute. But I have a lovely friend. He is a fantastic YouTuber, Dan Drambles. And he's working on a project called TERRORBYTES at the moment, which is a documentary series with the creators of In Search of Darkness, which is
Oh
Fangorian
my
nominated and loving
god!
him.
What? Sorry,
Amazing.
Harry. What?
And they are essentially trying to put together a documentary series on the history of horror video games. But what they need to make that happen is they need some survey responses. They need to see the interest in it. So I think it's Terabytes Doc is their Instagram. Obviously, if anyone can check it out, like the page, give it a follow, just engage with it. Make sure you fill out that survey. Basically,
Send
check
us
it
the
out.
link. Send us the link, and we'll get it attached to this episode. No,
Yeah.
I'll like saying I'll definitely do. I love the End of the Darkness. What they do for like horror documentaries. So 100% aboard. But yeah,
Super
send us the
exciting
link, and we'll get
stuff.
it attached to the end of this.
Yes.
Awesome.
And hopefully, like I say, Kia, we haven't scared her off too much with this talk. We'll have her back soon to do some reviews. I know we're not touching on many horror films coming up, but I'm sure there's some things we can rope you in. Or
I'm sure you like other stuff, but horror.
Yeah. I'm a one-trick pony.
Bless her.
I like One Piece. I like anime. Let's do some stuff about anime.
Yes.
Well, okay, just we might be talking at some point.
Cool. So yes, so that was the Terrifier. I hope we haven't left you too terrified, guys. Ooh. But yes, like if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the channel. Please follow us on YouTube. Please follow us on Instagram, Spotify, Apple Music will be on, Facebook.
Yeah, this episode will actually be up on audio tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that if you are an audio listener.
Oh, you've got Lee excited with One Piece, bless him. But yes, so same bat time, same bat channel.
Stay nerdy, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.